Welcome to episode 3 of the Gluten-Free Psychiatry Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Williams, and this is the episode where I share with the world that I have proven that PFAS can come out of the body during an Ionic Foot Bath. If you're not familiar with what an Ionic Foot Bath is, it's one of these devices where you put your feet in this little tub with water, and you put an electrode in there from this little device you plug in the wall, and you turn it on for 30 minutes. And over the 30 minutes, the water starts out clean and winds up really disgusting. And people have done a few studies on what comes out in there. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there. And so we're going to break some of that down because I've done my own research. It's available online. If you go to mindshiftcare.com, get yourself a foot bath and start cleaning your brain. That's what we're all about here. So let's go through the data here. The PFAS detox. We're finalizing a protocol that I want to put out there is what I did when I went through the protocol. This paper today where we stand is that it just showed what the concentration of PFAS was beforehand. It was just distilled water with a little bit of salt in there, pink Himalayan salt, about a quarter cup put in there. And so it was clean. That result came back negative. And after a 30-minute detox, that same water sample had super high levels of PFAS in my sample. A second person that did it had a much smaller results, but it did show it came out on 2 people that I've tested this on. So it's technically a case series, but this report fully describes the case report. So there's going to be a few more little sequential things. And I'd love to invite you, if you know you have PFAS, been on military bases, firefighter, exposed to that, or some manufacturing, carpeting industry, construction, any of this stuff where you think you may have high PFAS, I recommend get your levels tested. If you have high PFAS, or if you live in Salt Lake City, breathing it in the air that comes off the water, if you're in a vulnerable place, then you need to come to mindshiftcare.com and help us coach you on detoxing you through that. If you want to do it on your own, this is how. So our introduction is PFAS represents 15,000 different types of long chains of fluoride, which is a neurotoxin. And they bioaccumulate in plants and animals. That means that over time, the concentration gets higher and higher and higher, and they're not really being processed out by living things. They're getting stuck in the body, and they're accumulating, and they're bad for our hormones, our reproduction, and our neurons, and a whole lot of other things, risks of cancer. So they have been associated with kidney cancer, increased cholesterol, and thyroid problems, to name a few. My previous episode, published yesterday, talked about the biomarkers in our original research that I believe are associated with bioaccumulation. If you have high cholesterol, low vitamin D, and a thyroid disorder on your blood test, and you don't have any other medical problems, maybe ADHD, then you fit the pattern, and you need to get PFAS tested and do a detox, not take Adderall. Okay, PFAS is commonly referred to as forever chemicals due to the fact that they stay in the body from 3 years up to 27 years, depending on how many fluorides there are, which form of this chemical it is. Ongoing bioaccumulation risks remain for people working in those industries or at dump sites. There's documentaries on this, like Dark Waters and Amazon Prime. You should check that out, about how DuPont knew that it was toxic and kept it from people, and that it was being dumped, and the whole community and the farmers' cows died, and everybody got cancer. That's pretty much the story of dump site living near these places. And you wouldn't know that you live near a dump site. Some manufacturing or construction company could buy some land near a farm and not tell anybody and just start dumping stuff. And that's what's happened in the past. And it's what's happening now all over the world. So you don't trust your water. And just because the city of Springfield, Missouri is suing the 3M Corporation for dumping PFAS into the water, yes, you can look it up, into the James River, in fact. So everyone south in the James River, all out of the world, this stuff's been going on for 50, 70 years. It's all over the world. Well, just because that doesn't show up on the environmental working group map as a location of a PFAS spill, you should look up your area. There's a place about 45 minutes north of Springfield that's a totally different dump site sort of place. No media press has covered it. Little known, but the concentrations of PFAS in their water up there is much higher than the city of Springfield. So you don't know, and the environmental working group is trying to help, but they're way behind. And honestly, they need reports from the community. If you could get verified lab samples like I've done here and report that to the group, that might help the process. So podcasts can be used to get the people talking to the powers that be. And so I have a little of that activism in me. So besides living in dump sites and needing to get your water tested, there's definitely contaminated water supplies. I checked my water supply at work, and they hadn't changed the water filter in years. This was in Springfield, Missouri. I now have a private practice I do remotely, but they were just never replacing the filter in the water fountain. This was an urgent care, so patients drank this water, staff members drank this water for years, and they didn't care about it. So I sent it off for testing. Guess what? It's higher than the EPA limit. It's even higher than the city of regular Springfield's water, which begs the question, is somehow the PFAS accumulating within filters that aren't being replaced and thereby pushing them back and make them higher than the original concentration? Because that's what I showed in my single sample. Food packaging is another huge source of PFAS and BPA exposure. BPA is a plastic, bisphenol A, and at the end here I've got, and on the show links, I have links to these couple of good influential books that are the best way to get educated on PFAS quickly. Also, the painting industry, electroplating, carpet installation, carpet treatment, serving as a firefighter, working with ski wax. I would not have known that initially. But the stuff's in the substances. If you're touching chemicals at work, you should think about what's in those chemicals, including receipts, like BPA plastic in receipts is huge, PFAS. So if you work in a customer service industry and hand out receipts all day, you should get your PFAS level checked. Waterproofing materials and construction materials. So the public awareness is not caught up to the existing science, and there's just a paucity of recommendations available for the informed consumer. So there's just no one out there telling you that you can detox yet, except you heard it here today. First place ever talking about detox of PFAS. No one's even trying it. For that matter, I'm really curious why no one has tried dialysis, because electrolysis is like a mild, low-yield dialysis. It pulls out and balances out some of the higher concentrating things floating around in your blood. Things that have been shown to come out in Ionic Foot Baths prior to this study that gave me the idea to try to pull PFAS out of the body was published results on lead and glucose and glyphosate, Roundup, that weed killer that's in 95% of sperm samples in the U.S. It's killing our reproductive systems, people, and our endocrine systems. It's all our hormones. It's taking our will to live away because we don't have the hormones that drive us, things like hunger and motivation. The available data for daily exposure for the general public of PFAS comes out of Canada and Norway. They don't have the fast food lifestyle as much as we do here in America, so there are really no studies to date in America on the average daily exposure in the U.S. It could be way off the charts from here, but the daily consumption was 90% dietary, with intake of 73 nanograms per day, which is on par with the dust and air inhalation exposure. So you're getting it from everywhere. Food was 90% though. A follow-up study, that same group estimated rates as high as 250 nanograms per day of people are eating and drinking PFAS. Doesn't sound like much, but endocrine disruptors are potent little buggers that can grab your receptors and not let go and affect your hormones and cancer. So this study aims to validate that ionic foot bath treatments remove PFAS from the human body, paving the way to correlate this fact with improved health outcomes. So what were my materials? And I have links to all this in the show notes. I used a handcrafted copper foot basin from India. It might have heavy metals in it, and I'm going to test mine at the end of the study. But the idea was I just didn't feel comfortable using plastic, and plastic liners in the bags that you normally see with foot baths. I'm like, I want to get into plastic and PFAS research, and contamination is important to me. So using a blood test called PFAS that comes from, that's the water test. That one I got from Amazon. The blood test was from anylabtestnow.com. And basically, get your blood test first. I tested the water. We were using a gallon at a time, so you can have the quantity of water that in your foot bath to be a known fact. And then you can calculate the total amount of PFAS that's excreted. So I'll go over that shortly. But I just bought distilled water from the local grocery store. That's all I did, and it was clean of PFAS when I bought it and sent out the test. That test cost me $300. So this research is not to snub your nose at. You can't get data like this because most people won't spend that kind of money. And after the 30-minute PFAS or foot bath, I sent off the sample again. So before and after cost me $600 to do this research study. And I'm not counting the blood tests. All in all told, it's going to be a couple thousand by the time I detox, test my water before and after everything. And that's a lot. That's why we need community-based research. I use the Ionic Cleanse Detox machine from Better Health Company. It's a round double coil array. The model number is BHC CTRL-01. Basically, it's a 2 amp, 12 volt. And people that are in the industry will say that the amps matter. And this was the weakest, cheapest one I could find, people, and PFAS still comes out. I believe this unit cost me about $140. I've seen it down as low as $85 for a foot bath machine. So if you want to jump to the point, jump off this podcast, get yourself a foot bath, and just start doing it every day or every other day for 2 to 4 months. Do a lot of them. There's a protocol listed here, but it takes a lot to get this out. You'll have to do electrolyte replacement and stuff, and that's why I offer detox coaching, so you don't have side effects. I used a Green Pan brand cooking pot to heat up the water. My technique was this. I would put 1 quart out of a gallon. I put a quarter of it into this Green Pan cooking pot on the stove to heat it up to a boil. Almost a boil, a light boil, right? Not rolling. And then I would put the rest of the water in the foot bath, and I'd add in the hot water, and the temperature was just perfect for my foot to sit there for 30 minutes. I wanted to make sure that the pan I was heating the water up in wasn't somehow adding PFAS back. For example, if you use anything with DuPont or any of those linings, scratch-proof, Teflon coated stuff, that would have been putting PFAS directly into the study and would have confounded my results. So I made sure I was using a PFAS-free sample. And indeed, that's what I did. My heated water was used to send to the whole sample was. Again, I used pink Himalayan salt, about a 1/4 cup per session. And there, I've kind of talked through my methods and background. I've already explained most of the whole thing. If you'll go to the website, you'll see pictures before what this looks like, the clean water with your feet in there, and then 15 minutes into it, it's getting nasty, and 30 minutes at the end where it's just thicker. It's just opaque. You can't see through the water anymore. Stuff's definitely coming out. And again, previous research from others has demonstrated lead, glyphosate, Roundup, the weed killer, and glucose. Large macromolecules come out through the skin when these pores are open. People say, how does that work? How does a foot bath get large toxins out of your body? What happens is the electrolysis process is affecting the electrochemical gradient across the cell membrane such that it opens up these transport channels. It opens them up and your body leaks the cells. The cells leak it out. There you go. Okay, so I'm excited by this. I'm curious on your feedback. Next steps, what I plan to do is finish my detox and hopefully get the total number of PFAS components out of my body. Decrease it at least, right? That's called the detox. I've shown this comes out in the foot bath here with this study, but I haven't shown that that's clinically relevant or how much foot bath is needed. We don't know that yet. I can use your help. I am soliciting a community-based research group. I need friends on this subject. If you're in the industry or if you want to detox, if you've got the money to spend on testing and stuff, why don't we collaborate so that we can publish studies together? If you're a researcher or a writer or anything along these lines and want to help the cause, just reach out to me at mindshiftcare.com.